Okay, we're back. Pag-usapan natin sa video lecture na ito, yung tatlong business activities, yung operating, investing, and financing, pero medyo detailed ito. Now, in relation to this video lecture, I will be assigning you a separate lecture kung saan diniscuss ko yung activities in a business organization para meron kayong separate na perspective. Okay? Pang basic accounting ko yun na lecture pero magagamit po natin ito dito sa ating topic para at least mas maintindihan po ninyo ng mabuti itong ating pag-uusapan na topic sa ngayon. But of course, ang point of view natin sa ngayon sa lecture na ito ay pang intermediate accounting. Now, andito na, makikita na po ninyo, hindi ko na nilagyan ng intro na slide, pag-usapan po natin muna yung operating activities followed by what? Investing and then financing and other topics. Kagaya ng pinahapyaw ko po sa inyo kanina doon sa unang video lecture. Okay. Now, when we are talking of operating activities, what are we expecting? Of course, these are, salitang ugat ng operations. No? These are cash flows from operating activities. Okay? And etong mga operating activities na ito, saan ito nanggagaling? They are primarily derived from the principal revenue producing activities of the company. If you're a trading company, buy and sell, ano ba yung principal revenue generating activity mo? Yung pagbabuy and sell. Of course, no? So, depende. Magkakaiba yan. Depende sa nature ng industry mo. Depende kung ano yung business mo. So, kung ano yung principal revenue generating activity mo, yun ang iyong operating activities. At doon nanggagaling yung ating mga cash flows. Hindi lamang, kasi baka isipin niyo principal revenue generating activity. So, puro yun cash inflow. Hindi class ha. Please take note. I am only referring to the principal revenue generating activity for you to take note of the operating activities. Pero hindi ibig sabihin nun, inflow tayo palagi. For you to sell something, remember your matching principle. Okay? You have to recognize the costs. Okay? Expense recognition. So, for you to sell something, may mga cost incurred yan. Okay? So, dapat, siyempre, malamang sa malamang, even though accrual accounting tayo, meron at merong lalabas na pera dyan. Okay? Yung mga yon ay cash outflow. So, hindi lamang po tayo cash inflow palagi. Even though we are talking about principal revenue producing activities. Okay? This results from transactions and other events that enter into the determination of the company's profit or loss. Income minus expenses. But of course, we are talking of the cash basis. Kasi pag nasa SCI nga tayo, di ba? Remember that we are talking of accrual accounting. Ang mga sumusunod po ay mga cash flows that are that are caused by your operating activities. Meron tayong reference dito paragraph 14 of IAS or PAS 7. If you have the reference, if you can check on IAS 7, you can do so para mas makita po ninyo, mas maintindihan po ninyo at may basis yung ating lecture. Cash receipts from the sale of goods and the rendering of service. Alam naman na natin yan. Cash receipts, excuse me, pasok yung pera, cash inflow. What else? Cash receipts from royalties, fees, commissions, and other revenue. Kasama po yan sa operating activities. Cash payments, labas yung pera. To suppliers for goods and services. Para makabenta tayo, kailangan natin bumili ng inventory. Ito yun, cash payments to suppliers for the goods and services. Even if you are a service provider, o may mga expenses ka na kinakailangan maglabas ng pera for you to perform your services. So, payment of suppliers for goods or services. Cash payments to and in behalf and on behalf of employees. O halimbawa, you are a service provider, wala kang inventory, pero nagpapasahod ka ng mga empleyado mo na nagpo-provide ng services na yon na ino-offer mo. Payroll Payroll accounting, di ba? Yung cash payments natin dyan, operating activities po yan. What else? Ito naman, cash receipts. Pag sinabi natin cash receipts, may pumasok na pera, cash inflow. Okay? Cash receipts and cash payments of an insurance company for premiums and claims, annuities, and other policy benefits. Kung ikaw ay isang insurance company. Cash payments or refunds of income taxes. Pag may payments or refunds daw tayo ng income taxes, cash payments, maglalabas ka. Cash refund, may balik unless they can be specifically identified with financing and investing activities. General rule, okay? Ang cash payments or refunds ng income taxes ay operating activities unless we can identify that it is a financing or investing activity. And last item here, last example here, cash receipts and payments from contracts held for dealing or trading purposes. Okay, mga dealings or trading purposes, receipts and payments, inflow or outflow. Those are operating activities. How about investing activities? Ano naman ang investing activities? When we are talking of investing activities, these are activities that represent the extent to which expenditures have been made for resources intended to generate future income and cash flows. Mga expenditures, and we are talking of capital expenditures here, have been made for resources intended to generate future income and cash flows. Kasi ang mga pinag-uusapan natin dito, mga non-cash assets. Non-trade assets. Mga property, plant, and equipment, investment in such properties, Why do we do that? Because it can be utilized for a long period of time. Halimbawa, bumili tayo, nag-invest tayo ng machineries, naglabas tayo, that is a capital expenditure. Okay? It will generate future income kasi gagamitin natin yan sa production. Kikita tayo because of the utilization of those properties, of those machineries. That is why, ganun po yung definition ng investing activities. Affects non-trade assets, most of which are classified as non-current. Okay? And the examples that we can see in paragraph 16 of PAS 7 are the following. Please take note, cash payments to acquire PPE, property, plant, and equipment. Shortcut ko na lang po ito, but our assumption here is you understand what PPE is all about. Of course, because of the pandemic, nagkaroon tayo dito ng ibang meaning. Although even before the pandemic, may ibang meaning na ito sa ating health community. Sa mga medical professionals, personal protective equipment, yung goggles, face mask, mga suits, yung mga tawag doon. Pero for accounting, we are talking about property, plant, and equipment. Intangibles, mga intangibles natin. Other long-term assets, including those related to capitalized development cost and self-constructed PPE. Class, we will not be sitting down in the details of what is a capitalized development cost. What is self-constructed PPE? That is a topic of a separate session, separate subject. Okay? What we are after in this session is to identify examples of cash flows. Okay? On this particular instance, sa slide na ito, investing activities. Alright? Next, cash receipts from sale of PPE, intangibles, and other long-term assets. Disposal of PPE, naka-generate tayo ng inflow of cash. Pasok yan sa investing activities. Cash payments to acquire investments in equity or debt instruments of other companies and interest in joint ventures. Again, I will not be talking about joint venture accounting or discussion on investments in equity or debt instruments. Ang ibang intermediate accounting yan. Examples lamang po tayo dito. Okay? But pasok po yan sa investing activities when we are paying cash to acquire investments in equity or debt securities. Okay? Or other companies and interest in joint ventures. Mga JV na tinatawag natin. Open and close parenthesis. other than receipts for those instruments considered to be cash equivalents and those held for trading or dealing purposes. Please take note of that, no? Cash advances and loans made to other parties other than advances and loans made by a financial institution. Okay? Kasama po yan sa investing activities. Cash receipts or payments for future contracts, forward contracts, option contracts, and swap contracts, except when the contracts are held for dealing or trading purposes or the receipts payments are classified as financing activities. Okay? Please take note ha. Kasama po yan sa past 7 sa paragraph 16. We are simply capturing it, no? Ina-identify natin ito because they are considered as investing. Okay? Pag-usapan naman natin ang financing activities. Ano naman po ang nasa financing activities? At pag financing activities, ano ba tinutukoy natin dito? These are cash flows, no? Transactions with non-trade creditors and shareholders that are useful in predicting claims on future cash flows by providers of capital. No, doon sa ating basic accounting, yung isang video lecture na inassign ko or i-assign ko sa inyo, ang dali lang naman 'di ba ng discussion. But when we are putting the details, no, medyo sumasakit sa ulo yung mga terminologies na ginagamit natin. Non-trade creditors that are useful in predicting claims on future cash flows by providers of capital. Di bale, siguro through the examples, no, makakatulong naman para mas maintindihan natin 'yan. But when we are talking of financing activities, these are activities, no, arising from financing. Sources of finances, sources of funds. We are borrowing from our shareholders, borrowing from the banks. Kaya nga, di ba, going back doon sa investing activities, except when the contracts are held for dealing or trading purposes or the receipts payments are classified as financing activities, except or other than advances and loans made by a financial institution. Kasi mga magfo-fall siya sa financing activities. So ang example po natin dito, and this is coming from paragraph 17 of past 7, statement of cash flow, no? Cash proceeds from issuing shares or other equity instruments. That is a form of financing. Kailangan ni company ng pera. Hindi siya makautang. Mag-issue siya ng shares. Share issuances ito. That is why under siya ng financing activities. Cash payments to owners to acquire or redeem the company's shares. Okay? Payments. Paglabas ng pera, binili, in-acquire natin, redeem natin yung company shares. Okay? That is financing activities. What else? Cash proceeds from issuing debentures, loans, notes, bonds, mortgages, and other short or long-term borrowings. Simply stated, nangutang tayo sa bangko, may natanggap tayo na pera, cash proceeds yun. Regardless kung ano man yung ating terms, yung agreement natin doon sa ating utang. Secured ba yan? May collateral yan? May mortgage yan? Bonds ba yan? Wala tayong alam. Or hindi natin alam, no? Basta ang alam natin, they are financing activities. Cash repayments of amounts borrowed. Binayaran natin yung inutang natin dito sa taas. Cash payments by a lessee for the reduction of the outstanding liability related to a lease. That is also financing activity. Okay, now, what is the treatment of interest and dividends? Kasi meron po medyo tricky po itong dalawang items na ito. Please take note. Cash flows from interest and dividends received and paid. Pakibasa maigi. Pakiintindi po nito maigi ha. Kinakailangan po itong i-disclose separately. It shall be classified in a consistent manner from period to period as either operating, investing, or financing activities. Bakit either? So meron tayong options. Alamin natin. Ang interest paid daw, generally classified as an operating activity. interest, no? Cost of financing, di ba? Generally classified yan as operating activity. Alternatively, it may be classified as a financing activity because it is a burden of financing. Kaya nga sabi ko, cost of financing. But payment of interest is generally classified as an operating activity. Please take note ha. Alternative lang yung i-consider siya, i-classify siya as a financing activity. Now, interest and dividends. And parehas. Interest and dividends received are generally classified as operating activities. Dito, interest payment. Walang nakalagay na dividend payment, no? Interest payment. Dito, interest and dividend receipt. Tayo naman yung nakatanggap. Generally classified din yan as operating activities. But alternatively, they may be classified as investing activities because they are considered fruits of investments. Nag-invest ka. Okay? Anong ininvest mo? Nag-invest, ano bang mga example natin dito? Balikan natin para makita mo. Cash payments to acquire investment in equity or debt instruments of other companies and interest in joint ventures, no? O dahil nag-invest ka doon, may matatanggap ka ng mga dividendo. Okay? So, kaya dito, alternatively, they are considered as a classified as an investing activity kasi fruits of investment. So, kaya nga, kinukonsider natin ito as investing activity, pero alternatively lang. Generally classified siya as operating activities. Okay? I hope that is clear, ano? Yung total amount ng interest paid dito sa number 2, during a reporting period is disclosed in the statement of cash flows whether the interest is recorded as expense or capitalized in accordance with past 23 borrowing costs. Okay? Dito ang sinasabi lamang po dito, dinidisclose po natin sa statement of cash flow yung total amount of interest paid regardless sa ating proper treatment niyan. Kung expense man yan or capitalized because of borrowing cost siya under. Okay? Additional item, dividends paid. Ito kanina, interest paid. Ito, dividends paid. Tayo nag-pay. Please take note, no? Kasi dito, yung interest and dividends received, parehas operating. Pero dito, interest paid lang, hindi kasama yung dividends paid. Nandito kasi si dividends paid. Kung yung interest paid, generally classified as operating activity, dividends paid is generally classified as what? Financing activity. Kasi, ano ba ito? Distribution to shareholders, sources of financing, di ba? And then return of financing, no? Dahil meron tayong mga equity, nadagdagan yung ating equity, parang binenta natin yung ating shares of stocks para mag-increase yung ating capitalization, magkaroon tayo ng cash. Return of capital, return of investment is your dividend. So it is classified as financing activities, no? Because distribution to shareholders ito. Because they are considered providers of finance. Alternatively, kino-consider natin siya as operating activities. Please familiarize yourselves with this generally. Alternatively, baka maaring matanong ito sa quiz and normally natatanong ito. Okay? Alternatively, kina-classify ito as operating activities in order to assist users to determine the ability of the company to pay dividends out of operating cash flows. Okay? So yan po yung ating justification sa alternative classification. Interest and dividends shall be classified consistently from period to period. Alam naman na natin yung concept ng consistency in application. Okay? Regardless of the classification presentation chosen by the company, it must still be classified consistently from period to period. How about taxes on income? Ano naman gagawin natin sa taxes on income? Of course, it has to be separately disclosed and classified as cash flows from operating activities. Going back doon sa mga previous slides, di ba? Sabi doon, unless, di ba, cash payments or refunds operating unless specifically identified as financing or investing. Kaya dito nakalagay, generally classified as operating activities. However, if it is practicable to identify the tax cash flow with an individual transaction that gives rise to cash flows that are classified as investing or financing activities, then the tax flow or the tax cash flow can be classified as cash flow from investing and financing activities as appropriate. Yun yung sinasabi doon, if we can specifically identify it, then so be it. Pero generally classified siya as operating activities. I hope that is clear. Okay? How about foreign currency cash flows? Please take note, no? May mga transactions tayo involving foreign currency. Kasi, halimbawa, maraming mga organizations, multinational, okay, MNC, Coca-Cola, Petron, karamihan ng mga companies dito sa atin ay mga mga foreign companies. Of course, no, meron tayong mga foreign currency related transactions. Kasi hindi naman siya, nandito tayo sa Pilipinas, of course, we are using the peso. Pero may mga transactions na nagagaling sa original na foreign currency nila. Let's say from the US, no, US dollar. From Japan, let's say Toyota Motors. May mga transactions that may be gagamit tayo ng Japanese yen. Okay, Chinese yuan kung sa China naman. So foreign currency related cash flow transactions should be translated using the exchange rate at the date of the cash flow. Pero because of the difference, initial recognition kung ano yung exchange rate noon. And then gagamit tayo, of course, no, for period end closing, no. So we are also may mga transactions tayo na kinakailangan natin yung mga exchange rates ng current period. Nagkakaroon, it will give rise to unrealized gains and losses. So unrealized gains and losses from changes in foreign currency rates are not cash flows. Please take note that. Yun nga lang, yung effect ng exchange rates on cash and cash equivalents held or due in a foreign currency is reported in the statement of cash flows. Okay, in order to reconcile cash and cash equivalents at the beginning and end of the period. Meron tayong asset na hinahawakan. Beginning, recognize natin. Okay, using the exchange rate at the time, at the initial recognition. Year end, nandiyan pa rin. I-check natin based on the exchange rate at the time of the current. No? So, meron tayong differences in exchange rates. It will give rise to unrealized gains or losses. So, for the effect of exchange rates, no, kinakailangan natin yung i-report in the SCF para ma-reconcile natin yung cash and cash equivalents at the beginning and end of the period. Beginning mo, yung exchange rate noon. End mo, yung exchange rate ngayon. Unrealized gain or losses, it has to be reflected. Okay? This is reported as a separate item in the SCF and includes the difference, if any, had those cash flows been reported at the end of the period exchange rates. We'll see if we have examples. Hindi ko pa na-check yung ating mga examples, pero tignan natin kung meron tayong makukuhang example dyan. Okay? Non-cash transactions. Of course, non-cash transactions are transactions that do not involve cash. Kaya siya non-cash. Okay? In events about investing and financing activities of a company during a period that affects assets or liabilities pero walang cash receipts or payments, walang cash inflow or outflow, hindi po yan nire-report sa statement of cash flow. Kasi tandaan ninyo, ang pinag-uusapan natin sa SCF ay movement ng cash. Kung non-cash transaction, bakit mo yan ilalagay doon? Okay? Pero kung material yung mga non-cash transactions, kinakailangan natin yang i-disclose elsewhere in the financial statement pero hindi sa statement of cash flow. Okay? Anong mga examples natin dyan? Acquisition of assets, either by assuming directly related liabilities or by means of a finance lease. Acquisition of a company by means of an equity issue. Conversion of debt to equity. May movement, may transaction, pero walang cash involved. Example yan ng non-cash investing and financing transactions. Hindi po natin yan ipe-present doon sa statement of cash flow, but it is presented elsewhere. Okay? Alright, so hanggang dito muna tayo. Kasi yung susunod natin na discussion will be on reporting cash flow from operating activities using the indirect method and the direct method. Okay? So hanggang dito muna tayo. Maraming salamat. If you have questions, sorry, mukhang nagmamadali ako, parang ang bilis-bilis ng aking discussion. But I hope you learned something. If you have questions, please let me know. I'll see you around on my next video lecture. Bye-bye.